Hello, my friends. My name is Adam, and I am attempting to be the world's most prolific reviewer. Currently, I have two bones in my elbow which are broken, but I am in the middle of the convalescence, and it's not going very well, let me tell you, but that's a topic for another day. The topic for today is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, the 2022 film, written and directed by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, and starring Michelle Yeoh, Stephanie Su, and Ke Huy Kwan, and James Hong and Jamie Lee Curtis. So, this is a really difficult movie to describe, and it's one movie that was on my list of movies to see when it was in the cinema. And my kids went with their mom, and I asked them, "Do you want to go see it again?" And they're like, "No." So I never got around to seeing it in the cinema, but I have a lot of time recently, so I decided to watch it. So the production of this film is basically the writers thought that they had something really revolutionary with this concept of verse hopping. And I don't know why they thought that because that is a very big comic book trope. And when they were writing the movie, the Across the Spider Verse came out, or Into the Spider Verse, whatever the first one is, and they were like, "Oh no, somebody's had our idea." And then there was Loki that they were offered to write for, and they weren't interested because they wanted to focus on this project. And the first or second season of Rick and Morty also involves like this multiverse. So the writers stopped watching Rick and Morty. But as I said, I don't think it's that revolutionary of a concept, the multiverse. I think their interpretation is pretty revolutionary because the idea in the film is that if you have this technology, you can go to somebody in a different part of the multiverse and you can absorb their skills, but it has to be you. So, for example, the main character, she in our world is just this somewhat unsuccessful middle-aged Chinese lady who owns a laundromat, probably in LA, but she owns this laundromat. But in other worlds, she is a successful martial arts actress, and so she can like use this um, this talent that she has in those worlds to fight against her adversaries. And recently I've noticed this thing where movies, especially kind of more contemporary movies, like movies came out in the last 2 to 5 years, the writing is not strong. And what I mean by that is that the writing doesn't really reflect what the message of the movie is. So there's two kinds of, this is going to be a little bit complicated, but I have a theory of plot and story. So the plot is actually what happens in the film, and the story is what the film is about. And the plot needs to show you what the what the story is about. Um, like um, for example, I reviewed Begonia recently, and that is a movie where the trope is that there is a guy who believes in aliens and he's a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but he turns out to be correct. So the plot, it doesn't really reflect the story of the film because I guess the story is about how trauma kind of ruins civilization and ruins human life, but they don't show that very well. And in this movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, they do really show the story really, really well. The plot is a little bit less important because if I told you the details of the plot, you'd be like, okay, there's a big hole in the plot. Maybe I'll come back to that. But the story is all about how Evelyn is her name, how she comes to accept that she is actually happy in her universe, even though she puts this like cantankerous front and she seems to be like a failure and stuff. And even one character says to her, like, the reason you're so good at this, that you can like jump between these universes, is because you have failed and you had so many plans in this universe that never happened. So basically, the character is saying that she's a failure, but she doesn't feel like she's a failure. She feels like, I mean, it takes her a while to realize that, and that's the story of the movie, but she loves her husband, she loves um, her daughter, and she accepts the fact that her father has complicated feelings about her. So, and she learns to understand different people's perspectives. And there's even like a fight scene at the end where she, because her husband is like, don't hurt anybody, you know, they're hurting. He has a great line, but I forgot exactly how it goes. But he basically says, you know, don't hurt anybody because they have enough pain in their lives, something like that, to that effect. And so she's fighting people using love because she's having this kind of like multi-universe conversation with her husband. And in our universe or her universe, her husband is kind of a bit of a failure, or at least she feels that way. But he's not a failure. He's actually incredibly strong, and he treats people with compassion, basically. And in the universe where he's not a failure, he's explaining this like quite eloquently to her, and she kind of gets that, you know, you don't have to destroy people to win, and what you're actually fighting for is not like victory in that you've defeated everybody. It's that you have this balance and harmony in your family life. So, yeah, I think that it's really good. The special effects are great. The martial arts sequences are kind of cool. Um they're kind of like very uniquely done. Like in one universe, she's one of those sign tossers, so she gets, you know, the people who stand on the corner and toss the sign. So she gets the sign and she's like throwing it up and throwing it down and all of that stuff. And in yeah, and then there are some bits that are a bit too kind of gross because when I was watching it, I was thinking like, you know, they could go anywhere with this in the universe. They could have like, you know, very creative interpretations. And they do have three very creative interpretations of the multiverse. And I'm going to mention one because it's connected to the thing that I kind of didn't like about the film. So the one thing is that they have one universe where there are hot dog fingers. The people have hot dog fingers. I don't know how that works, but like Evelyn is in this universe and she's like disgusted by the love, like it's like some Bollywood film she's watching on screen, and she's disgusted by the love scene where like people are rubbing the hot dog fingers on their faces, and yeah, it's pretty gross. So I there's a lot, maybe not a lot. There were a few instances like that where you go, okay, we don't necessarily need that joke. And then there's some other things with some, let's say, butt play, where I'm not going to explain it, but basically people get things stuck in their butt, and then they're fighting with these things stuck in their butt. Yeah, so I could have done without that. And the one plot hole that I would see that people would come that might be critical about this movie is that when So Evelyn is approached by a guy named Wayman Prime, and her husband is Waymond because they can't say Raymond. You know, I don't know why you would choose a name that you can't say. Their English name is his English name is Waymond. So anyway, so the universe in which they discover that they can hop through these multiverses is called the Alpha Universe. A bit arrogant, but anyway, it's called the Alpha Universe. So Alpha Wayman, he is explaining to her that she doesn't have any time, and then there's this like evil force that's coming to destroy all universes, and this is a plot. This is a spoiler for the plot, but what happens is this evil force that's coming to destroy all of the universes is her daughter, and she believes that if she wants to stop her, she needs to become like her. And this is really well done actually, because the daughter has the ability to go through all of the multiverses at once and experience everything at once. So basically, she's like a deity, and she creates this uh, donut, everything bagel, but it's like a cosmic bagel that's gonna destroy everything, or maybe not. We don't know what it actually does, because they didn't get to use it. It sucks people in, but where do they go? Who knows? Um, yeah. So the plot about stopping her is very quickly abandoned in the middle because Evelyn wants to become like her, and stopping her takes on a different meaning for her. And the reason I don't think it's a plot hole is because Evelyn is just discovering this whole other reality, that these other things exist in these other realities, and she doesn't quite have a grasp on the political, let's say, implications of what's going on. So when she does finally start to understand, she understands that these people who originally contacted her may not have her best interests at heart. You know, so I think it's really well done. It's a creative take on multiverses because people kind of tend to think we have a multiverse fatigue, um, but I think it's kind of like superhero movies. If you make a great superhero movie, people will watch it. Maybe not in the cinemas, but maybe later, and they will appreciate it. They'll come back to it. So I think a multiverse universe movie is like that, the same. And there's a lot of high level critical analysis about this movie, about what it means to be an immigrant in America, and you know different identities that are portrayed in the movie. And I think that the good thing is that about the movie is that you can get that deep if you want to. It's a kind of movie where it invites discussion like that, but you can just enjoy it as a movie, as entertainment, and it's really, really good. And the actors who I mentioned at the top, but I forgot. Yeah, Michelle Yeoh does a really, really great job. Um, and Kei Hugh Kwan also does a great job. The other supporting actors do great jobs as well, but those two are really the emotional heart of the movie, and their kind of understated love affair is the heart of the movie, and the fact that they created this child that they both care for, they both adore, but they have a hard time understanding is the core of the movie as well. And I think my kids, when they watched it, they would have been 13 and 9 respectively, probably. No, 12 and 8, maybe something like that. But anyway, I won't do the math now, but I can understand why they didn't like it, because they didn't really, because when you're at that age, I think oftentimes the story of the film is hard to understand if you're not in that position, if you don't have that life experience. So I have relationships that have failed. I have kids that, I want the best for, but I might not always understand them. And they might not understand me and the things that I say and the things that I do. And, so I think that's why they didn't like it. So I think it's not an action movie where everyone can sit down and have a great time. There is like a specific audience for this, but I think, you know, it's entertaining regardless. But so I liked it. I liked it. I would give it a 7 out of 10. So on my scale, 7 out of 10 is like a really good movie that if it comes on, you should go out. So I think 10 out of 10 is like you must see it, drop everything, see it as soon as you can. 9 out of 10 is like make plans in the next week to see it. 7 out of 10 is like in the next month you should see it. 6 out of 10 is like, yeah, you could see it or not. 5 out of 10 is like, if it's on the TV, see it. All right, so that's my review. What did you think about Everything Everywhere All at Once? Let me know in the comments. I'm trying to get 200 subscribers by the end of January, and currently we have 160 subscribers. If you're watching or listening on Spotify, please drop a follow. Spotify tells me I should have 15 followers and I have one, so I'm trying to get my numbers up, baby. My numbers up, baby. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.